For 11 years, I was my best friend's emergency contact. I paid her rent 4 different times. I let her live in my spare room twice. I thought I knew everything about our friendship. Then, a woman I had met maybe twice put her hand on my arm at a birthday party and said, "I'm so glad you're doing better." I said thank you. I smiled, and then I stood in that kitchen holding a paper cup, trying to work out what exactly I was supposed to be recovering from. You would love Nicole. That's not a figure of speech. You would. Everyone did. She was the one who remembered that you had a hard week and showed up with the good wine. She was funny in a way that made you feel funny too. When she walked into a room, people rearranged themselves around her without noticing they were doing it. I met her when we were 23, and for a long time, being her best friend felt like being let in on something. And her crises were real. I need you to understand that, because it's the whole reason this worked. Nicole wasn't a con artist. The layoffs happened. The breakups happened. The apartment really did flood. She was the person to whom things genuinely, relentlessly occurred. And when they did, she called me and I came. I want to tell you why I always came, because it isn't very flattering. I grew up in a house where my mother's mood set the weather, and I learned before I was 10 that the way to be safe was to be useful, to anticipate, to fix it before it became a storm. I didn't know that's what I was doing with Nicole. I thought I was being a good friend. It took me until I was 41 to understand that I hadn't chosen her. I had chosen the role, and she just happened to be standing in it. So 4 rents, 2 stays in the spare room, a car repair, a deposit, and a spare room I kept made up permanently, sheets clean like a hotel that only ever had one guest. The party was for a mutual friend's 40th, rented back garden, string lights, too many people I half knew. The woman's name was Priya. She'd been at a few things over the years. She touched my arm the way you touch someone's who's been ill, and she said it. "I'm so glad you're doing better," with such genuine warmth that my first instinct was to reassure her. I laughed and said, "Oh, thank you. Doing better than what?" And I watched her face change. That specific look, the moment someone realizes they've said something they were not supposed to say. She said it quickly. "Oh, I just meant, after everything." And then she went to get a drink and didn't come back. I stood there for a while. Then I started, very quietly, doing something I've never done before at a party. I started listening to how people talk to me. Someone asked carefully if I was sleeping okay these days. A man I'd known for 6 years asked how my job was going in the tone you'd use with someone who'd been fired. Another woman said she thought it was amazing how much Nicole had been there for me over the years. She said it like she was paying me a compliment. That's when the floor tilted, because I finally understood what I was hearing. It wasn't one rumor. It was a version, a whole, complete, patiently constructed version of me. And it had been circulating in my own life for years. And I had been the only person in the room who'd never heard it. In that version, I was the fragile one, the one who couldn't hold it together, the one who leaned, and Nicole, poor, loyal, exhausted Nicole, was the friend who kept showing up for me. Every rent I'd paid, every night she'd slept in my spare room, all of it turned inside out and handed back to them the other way around. Here's the part I still find hard to say out loud. I did the obvious thing. 2 weeks later, I sat down with Dana, the oldest friend in our circle, the one I trusted the most. And I told her I was careful. I wasn't hysterical. I said, I thought there might have been some misunderstanding about, who'd been helping home. And I watched it happen in real time. I watched Dana's face do something gentle and closed. She reached over and put her hand on mine, and she said, "Hey, it's okay. Nobody's keeping score." She wasn't being cruel. She was being kind to the person she thought I was. She thought she was talking of a fragile woman down off a ledge. I went home and sat in my car in the driveway for a long time because I understood the shape of the thing I was in. If I said nothing, the story stood. And if I defended myself, if I got upset, if I produced receipts, if I said no, listen, you've got it backwards, I would look precisely like the unstable person the story said I was. The lie had been built, so that struggling against it tightened it. That was the night I stopped sleeping properly. Not because of what she had taken, because for the first time in 11 years, I couldn't tell which part of my own life had been real. The thing that changed it wasn't evidence. I didn't need evidence. I had bank transfers and text messages and 11 years of my own memory. Could have papered a wall with proof. That was never the problem. The problem was that proof produced by me would only ever sound like a symptom. What changed it was a sentence that arrived at about 4 a.m, uninvited, the way the true ones do. The story only works because I keep feeding it. I sat up in the dark and followed it all the way down. Every single thing I did for her was the evidence. When I paid her rent, the circle didn't see me being generous. They saw Nicole managing my chaos and never complaining about it. When she stayed in my spare room, they didn't see me giving her shelter. They'd been told some version where she came to stay because I wasn't coping alone. My kindness wasn't just being hidden, it was being used as a raw material. I had spent 11 years hand-delivering her the proof, and that meant there was nothing to expose, nothing to prove, no letter to send, and no room to confront her in. There was only one thing in the entire situation that had ever been mine to control: the supply. I want to be honest about what this actually looked like, because it wasn't dramatic and it wasn't satisfying. It looked like nothing. Nicole called on a Thursday, about 6 weeks later, in tears, about a landlord and a deposit and a sum of money that was, that time, about $1,100. And I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone against my ear, and I listened to my oldest friend cry. And I did not say the sentence I had said 100 times in 11 years. I didn't say, "Don't worry, I'll sort it." I said, "That sounds really hard. I am sorry. I can't help with that one." There was a silence on that line I will remember for the rest of my life. Not anger, confusion, the specific confusion of someone reaching for a step that has always been there. She was gracious about it. She was gracious about all of it for weeks, in a way that was worse than shouting. And then things started happening that I hadn't planned and couldn't have planned, because when I stopped, the crisis didn't stop. They just had nowhere to go. They started landing one after another in front of everyone else. A borrowed car, a weekend on someone's sofa, a tense conversation about money at a dinner I wasn't at. I heard about them the way you hear about weather in another town. I didn't say a word. I want to be very clear about that. Not one word to anyone about any of it. I didn't have to. I'd finally understood that I had never been arguing with a story. I had been holding it up. It came apart at a wedding 8 months later. I almost didn't go. I sat in the parking lot for a while first, which is apparently just a thing I do now. Nicole was already inside and she was magnificent, honestly. That hasn't changed and I don't think it ever will. But something underneath had. 8 months of consequences with nowhere to be, quietly absorbed, had done a slow, visible thing to her and to the people around her who had spent those months getting the version of Nicole I'd been standing in front of for over a decade. There was a scene. It doesn't matter what about. A bill, a misunderstanding, a raised voice near the bar. The kind of things that 11 years ago would have ended with me steering her outside with a hand between her shoulder blades and telling everyone she was just tired. I was standing near the door and Nicole looked up across that whole room and she found me. She looked at me the way you look at a light switch that's always been there. I didn't move. I didn't cross the room. I didn't perform anything on my face. I wasn't cold and I wasn't triumphant. And there was no movement because that's not what this is. I just stayed exactly where I was, holding a drink, being a guest at a wedding, the way everybody else in that room got to be. And a woman I didn't know went over to Nicole and she put her hand on Nicole's arm and she said something quiet to her in a tone I recognized instantly because I had heard it in a rented back garden under string lights 8 months before. It was the tone you use with someone you've been told to be gentle with. For 11 years, that tone had been aimed at me in a story I never got to read. And now, without my saying a single word, it had simply found its right address. Dana called me about 2 months after that. She didn't apologize exactly. I don't think she had the word for what she'd been apologizing for. She just said, "I think I got some things wrong." There was a pause. Then, quieter. All those years, the rent, the spare room, that was you the whole time, wasn't it? It wasn't really a question. I said, okay, I meant it. She'd only ever been kind to the woman she'd been told about. Nicole and I haven't spoken in over a year. That's not a triumph. And some nights it's a genuine grief. I loved her. 11 years is 11 years. And I don't get those back. And I've stopped pretending that not getting them back doesn't hurt. But here's what I actually did with all that. I painted the spare room. It took a weekend. I stripped the bed that has been made up for over a decade. Clean sheets, always ready. And I dragged the mattress out to the curb. And I put a desk under the window where the bed had been. There's a lamp now and a plant I keep forgetting to water. It's the room I write in. For 11 years, I kept a room in my house ready for someone else's emergency. Now, I keep it ready for me. If this one hit home, this channel is about the quiet moment. Good people stop protecting the ones who hurt them. Subscribe, and I'll tell you another.